Hello everyone, this is the Space Apps COVID-19 Challenge Virtual Bootcamp. In today's video, I will talk about Intro to Web Development. You will learn the basics of web development and we are going to build a beginner's space project with the gained knowledge. My name is Escamilla and I've been working as a software developer at Bosch, Mexico for the last 2.5 years. I'm an aerospace engineer and my research interests are preliminary mission analysis, astrodynamics, and mass perturbations on low lunar orbits. I'm a Google Summer of Code student where I've been working on Molto, which is a low-thrust optimizer for interplanetary trajectories. I'm the co-founder of Space Explorers Mexico and the local lead for the Space Apps Guadalajara. This is the summary of the video. We are going to talk about the initial requirements that you need in your computer. After that, we are going to talk about the basics, Git, about frameworks in JavaScript and CSS, about communication protocols, and finally we are going to talk about miscellaneous information like React Native and Electron. After these slides, we are going to code the project, which I hope could be helpful for you during the Space Apps COVID-19 Challenge. First of all, I would like to make this video as short as possible, so I won't go into details with all the information, but I hope this could help you at least to show the correct path to follow in web development. So what's Node.js? In brief, we can say it's the way you can run JavaScript outside a web browser. Node.js will allow you to create your web application or your web server. But there is also another thing that it's amazing. The package management, called NPM. NPM is a tool that comes by default with every Node.js installation. This tool will help us to install JavaScript dependencies, like for example, create React app or Express.js. Please take the time to install Node.js stable version in your computer. It will be necessary in the coding part of this video. Let's talk about the basics: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We can think of HTML as the core, the bones of your website, the way everything is arranged. If we think about CSS, you can start thinking about the colors, fonts, and everything that helps the website to look better. Finally, we have JavaScript. JavaScript is the way you can make your website more user-friendly, or maybe what basically gives all the functionalities to your website. So here we have an example to better understand what we said before about the basics. If we think about the Earth as a website, we will have something like this, where we will have maybe a parent div called Earth and children divs called oceans, trees, or maybe volcanoes. So what if we apply some CSS, maybe some background colors to both divs? Well, we will have something like this. Now the Earth looks great. But what about JavaScript? Well, as we said before, JavaScript is about functionality. So you can create a function that generates this rotation of the Earth. Why not? So I hope this makes sense for you, and let's keep going with the next topic. So what's Git? Well, Git is a version control system for tracking changes to your project. You can upload your code into a Git repository hosting service as GitHub, Bitbucket, or maybe GitLab, and this Git repository will save all the changes you commit and push from your code. So you will be able to return in the time to any of them if needed. So if you lost or someone stole your computer, your code will be there in the hosting service. Git is one of the most important parts of web development and will help you a lot during a hackathon. In my experience as a mentor in different hackathons, I found that most of the participants do not know or haven't used Git, which is a problem. But why? Well, in hackathons where the time is really important, everyone needs to work in different parts of the project, but what happens when you need to join all these small parts into a big one? Well, you will have a hard time doing that. And actually the same process with Git could be really easy. So please install Git and use it. And actually I will share the repository of the beginner's space project and you will need Git to clone it into your computer. There are a lot of benefits if using React. but let's talk about some of them. React is easy to learn. You will notice that after to create your first project, it will be easy for you to create another one. You just need to follow mostly the same process, and you will notice that most of the time you will use the same libraries in your applications. You can create applications from scratch to production in less time. With the time, you will notice that you have templates that will help you to create new projects in minutes. Also, there are a lot of websites that makes easier and faster for React developers to host a new application. Components. They are one of the best features of React. They are functions or classes which are made with JSX. They will be the UI of your application. There are different types of components. There are functional components, class components, pure components, and high-order components. The best part of them is that you just need to code them one time and use them anytime within any React project. State management, even with Redux or Context API. They will allow you to have a global state management in your application. It's basically the way you will save and communicate the data within your entire application. JSX. Finally, we have JSX. It is basically what makes possible for HTML to coexist with JavaScript within the same file. So there are another benefits if using React, and I will talk about some of them at the end of these slides. REST and GraphQL are basically two different ways to send data over HTTP. The first one is the traditional way of doing that, and it's very useful, and I think that it's the protocol that most of the companies and developers uses. On the other hand, we have GraphQL, which is a query language. GraphQL represents a revolutionary system when we talk about APIs. This is because instead of getting data from a defined endpoint, we can send a query and get exactly the data we were looking for, and just in one request. One of the main differences is that in REST you will send a request to a lot of different defined endpoints, whereas in GraphQL it's not like that. You will have just one endpoint that will be actually /GraphQL. It's really important for you to understand this point. In my previous experience as a mentor, I did also notice that most of the teams fail just because they can't or they don't know how to get data from an API. And these REST and GraphQL protocols are what they need to use. So basically, this will be helpful for you, since almost all the challenges in Space Apps 19 COVID Challenge and also in the normal Space Apps hackathon, you will need to use data to do something. So please keep in mind and research more about this topic. That will be my main recommendation. Well, we are finally in the last slide. I just want to remind you that I'm not explaining in detail all the information, so please just keep in mind that this will help you to know what to search instead of wasting hours in research about what's better to use or what to use when you start doing web development. And let's talk about React Native and Electron. I added this slide because I think that it's important to let you know what's the other benefits of learning JavaScript and React, which is the base of both frameworks. Well, basically once you learn to make a web application with these technologies, you will also be able to make a desktop application just like the one that run in Windows or Linux and macOS. Also, you will be able to code a mobile application for both iOS and Android. So please, if you are interested in these platforms, look into these frameworks. So let's start with the coding part. First of all, open node.js.org, download the package, complete the steps, and check it out in your terminal or CMD if you have these versions installed. The next step is to create your application. So you're going to type npx create react app and the name of your application within your terminal or your CMD in Windows. In this case, the name is Space Project, so we are going to wait for the installation, and after that we are going to enter to the created directory. After that we are going to type npm start And if everything is okay, your browser will be open automatically in the port 3000. So if you see this website, this means your web application is up and running. In this tutorial, we are going to use NASA API portal, but in order to use it, we need to generate an API key. So please generate your own API key in this website. After you fill your personal data, you will receive an email with your API key and important information. In this website, we can access to different APIs, from exoplanets to satellites orbit information. For practical purposes, we are going to use the Mars Rover Photos API. In this way, our main goal will be to get all these photos and show them in a UI built in React. In this website, you can find everything you need to access their APIs. And for example, I just found the main URL we are going to use in our project. Well, something I did not mention before is that you will need a code editor. But don't worry, please download Visual Studio Code. I would say that right now is the best option. So, well, here you can see what's the code structure or the directory pattern we have in React. It's basically made from two directories, public and source. We also have non-modules, which are the installed modules in our project, and a package JSON, where we have our React configuration and also a list of dependencies. And well, first of all, let's prove the website keeps working, and I will run it from terminal. Now let's delete the code and make some changes in order to prove that the website is working and we can update it. Once we have everything installed, it's time to clean the code. Basically, we are going to change this function in order to be a raw function, and after that we are going to change the state. We are going to add what we are going to need from React. In this case, is useState and useEffect. And well, after that we are going to define the state we are going to use in the project. In this case, is about the response, the error, and if we are still loading the data from the API. After that, we are going to define the value demo key. This variable, it's the variable that we get from NASA. So please copy and paste the value that you have got from NASA website just there. After that, we're going to use a URL. This URL is the one that we get from the NASA website also, and we are going to concatenate the variable demo key. So in this way, we're making dynamic this URL. So after that, we are going to use useEffect, which is a new hook that is replacing the old component lifecycle, like component did mount and component will mount, etc. So we're doing this because these hooks will help us to call the API before rendering the website. So this means that we will show the images from Curiosity in the very first moment you enter to the website. For that, we are going to create a function called fetchData, which we will use the fetch function that comes built in JavaScript. So we just need to pass the URL because it's a GET request. It is the simplest request in the REST communication protocol. So the API will send the data we are requesting in a promise. That's why we are using async and await methods. We also need to convert the response into an object in order to gain access to the information. So after that, we need to save this data into a local component variable that we have just defined as response, which is the first one we have defined. It is important to set the state called isLoading because this will help us to show something in the website while we are making the request to the API. The brackets at the end of the useEffect function just means that we are going to just run this code one time. So if we delete these brackets, the useEffect hook will run a lot of times within even a second. Now it's time to define the template or the structure we will follow into the HTML code. We are basically going to use Flexbox to arrange the divs. First, we will have the header at the top centered, and just below we should be able to see the images from the API. These images will be arranged in different ways using FlexGraph. So it's very important you to know Flexbox or other CSS ways to arrange your elements into the website. I've just found Flexbox as the best way and the easiest one to arrange my elements. So we are also going to use an object.entries function. This is because our response data comes as an object, and we first need to iterate them before using it directly into the HTML. Actually, you will notice that there is an error, and this is because we are trying to access the data before it actually exists. It's basically because it is a promise, and we can solve this problem adding a conditional statement, asking for the response data, and if the response exists, you can access it, but if not, you are going to be redirected to another component, that in this case will be an error message. So you can notice that we have two conditional statements within the HTML. This is because, as I said before, we are looking into the isLoading variable to see if the user is making a request to the API. So if the user is making a request, we will show the loader, and if not, we are going to show the images that came from the API. And as I said before, in the second statement, we are looking into the response variable to see if it actually exists. This means if the API has returned some values and we have saved it there. After we solve these problems, we should be able to get and display the photos from Curiosity within your web application. So the last step are to find a way to display more images within a row and to be able to control the size of these images and its position. I would say that all these images from Curiosity are really amazing. But we still need to create the classes we have added to the divs within the CSS file and apply some styles in order to modify how the HTML looks like. It is important to notice that you can inherit styles to the children of your parent divs. So please take in account this information when you are applying your styles. For example, we can talk about flex. When you use flex direction, this style will be applied to all the children of the parent element. In the CSS file, we will also add some style to the loader, since I would like to absolute center this element. I hope with these changes, the images from Curiosity will look now arranged. This means we can use more images or even reduce the size of these images, and they will be rearranged automatically even in a cell phone. Let's check it out the website to see if these changes has worked. As you can see, they look better now. We now have the elements smaller and arranged into a more comfortable way to see them within the web browser. There is one more thing I would like to let you know. The URL has a date property which could be changed. As you can see, if you change this date, you can get images from days before or even years before. I would like to challenge you to make this feature dynamic using an input where the user could put the date and you can easily get the requested images. We are at the end of this video. I just want to let you know that all this project is hosted on my GitHub, and please feel free to use it. I will leave the link and my email, and if you have any question or suggestion, please don't hesitate to let me know. See you next time. Thank you so much for watching.